Welcome to From Moment to Movement. I'm your host, Tamara Banks. The U.S. is at a critical point in its history. Millions of Americans are rallying, demonstrating, protesting, and yes, some even rioting to make their voices heard, especially Black Americans. Racism is steeped into the very fabric of this country. And now in 2020, Black voices are tired of being ignored, muffled, and killed. We're experiencing an important moment. African Americans need this moment to march, protest, pray, cry, to be heard, and evoke change. From Moment to Movement hopes to provide a platform for Black voices. A movement has to arise from the ashes of a moment. From Moment to Movement is a series of one-on-one conversations with members of our Black community aimed at giving a platform to hear their experiences and work towards changing our systems. Our guest today is Yoal Ghebremeskel, co-founder of Street Fraternity. Yoal, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, so great to see you as well. Thank you for having me.
And for folks who don't know what Street Fraternity is, I've produced a couple of stories on you guys. You're amazing. You founded this organization after you graduated the University of Denver and decided to keep your skills here in the U.S. rather than going overseas and taking your international education overseas with you. This amazing organization does great work to provide resources and a place for young Black men, Africans and African Americans who typically don't have the opportunities to go someplace to fellowship and have a camaraderie and even get pizza for dinner. So I love it. You have to invite me back for pizza.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Yoal, let me ask you, we're talking about this moment that we're having right now, and it feels different in that after the 3 highly publicized police killings of unarmed Black people, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery, there have been rallies, protests, and like I said, even riots, not just here in the U.S., but across the globe. What do you think this moment means? And more importantly, how are you feeling about this moment?
There's a lot about this moment, and it's a lot to take in for many of us, I believe, and it's a lot to take in for us as an organization because there's a reason that we exist. And as I mentioned to you briefly before we logged on, we don't want to exist. We want to close our doors. Our mission is brotherhood and personal growth for urban young men, any and every young man. And we strategically chose an area of Denver, East Colfax neighborhood, knowing that there's a high need for what is described as disengaged youth. When that's described by academia, it said 16 to 24-year-olds, as I heard recently on the radio, that are not going to school and that don't have jobs. Predominantly, that is going to be in low-income communities. So as I mentioned, strategically, we opened our space in the basement of the Disabled American Veterans with the mission of brotherhood and personal growth for violent young men. Very quickly, we changed our mission to brotherhood and personal growth for urban young men because we saw the high need from this quote-unquote disengaged youth, which I would like to add youth that are at full potential. And so we serve 14 to 25-year-olds that voluntarily participate in our space. And I'm going a little off topic here, but I'm trying to connect it to your question. What we continuously have seen over the years is issues of mental health, of alcohol, school progress, of violence, and importantly, of having a space of belonging and identifying. So that is the work that we do here locally in Denver, in East Colfax neighborhood. We've been there for 7 years. We continue to do work during this crisis of COVID as much as we can with food needs. It is also a food desert in that neighborhood, like many other neighborhoods around the Denver metro area as well. Having said that, we also exist because the mainstream pathway of education to college and or career doesn't work for majority of the demographic that you described, African Americans, Latinos, others who are also immigrants living in the same neighborhood. And I think when I'm saying the same neighborhood that we're in, we can also relate that to other communities around the nation. And so this moment has brought a lot. And even in my personal experience, seeing folks, I'll tell you, just to get into it, my personal experience, I was at the state capitol for a protest on a Saturday, that first Saturday of protest. And I arrived, when you asked me that question, it's very hard to answer. It's mixed emotions. It's happiness, it's sadness, being very happy, and then excited, but then exhausted, and then being very happy and excited and energized and encouraged. And that experience that I had on that Saturday, I'll never forget in my life. These last 3 to 4 weeks, outside of what's happened to the 3 individuals that you mentioned, in our neighborhood, we lost a participant to gun violence. And that was about 3 weeks ago. We also lost another participant because he was involved in violence himself because of the nature of the neighborhood. We lost a participant 5 years ago who was shot by police 16 times, who had no weapon, yes, he was making mistakes. At that current moment, though, they feared him and shot him 16 times. And so fast forwarding to these last several weeks, it's mixed emotions. And I can only relate it to that experience that I had around the Capitol. And folks were circling the Capitol before going out to protest to downtown Denver. And seeing the crowd, the amount of people that were there, the diversity there, and mostly white folks who were also out, I would like to say that I had those very same mixed emotions. I was happy to see that. At the very same time, I was also asking that question of myself, where have you been? And so while feeling energized and encouraged, I still have those sentiments, but I'm also feeling motivated to keep doing what we're doing and to keep challenging our society to do better. And so I found myself I couldn't even circle one time around the Capitol. I broke down in tears of happiness and sadness. And I'm still trying to make sense out of that with the personal experiences that we've been having in the neighborhood within our organization, and the young adults of all demographics who fit the demographics of what you're describing. I think it's all related, and it's very tough time in our country.
It's a lot to digest, isn't it? I mean, it's a lot to just sort of wrap your brain around and say you feel this one way or these two feelings. I mean, it's complicated and it's complex.
It is, and I think that we have to educate ourselves. Bringing myself back to that experience at the Capitol was very good to see thousands and thousands and thousands of people that Saturday, and not only that Saturday, but for weeks on out. And the protests still are ongoing, and folks maybe have that emptiness inside of them about what can I do, right? What can I do? And yes, maybe it's complex. It's not two sides, but in this day and age too, and seeing what we're seeing, I would bring her back to my personal experience of the young men that I mentioned. When that happened, not only myself, but those around me built even a better understanding of what's happened. Bring it back to George Floyd now, right? And so when I'm seeing those thousands of people, we also have, when I'm saying we, I'm saying all those thousands that were out there that Saturday, they also should have that responsibility and have a responsibility to get out and teach themselves, to get out and reach out to the folks that can educate them. And I only say that, I know you mentioned, my experience at the University of Denver, and after that with Street Fraternity, and before that, I was also involved just in the community out of passion for playing soccer and coaching soccer and refereeing soccer to the community, and engage in that way and not having to go abroad to have that experience or to help. It was in the back door of where I lived, for 14 years. And then I realized 5 minutes away, I could be doing this. I don't have to go travel around the world. And I bring that back, Tamara, because I didn't learn of the civil rights movement in detail. I didn't learn of Emmett Till in high school or middle school. I learned that at the University of Denver from a course that I chose, from an elective course that I chose. And so going back to the complexity that you were bringing up, if it wasn't for that class that I chose, I wouldn't have had those lessons, right? And then even going further, and I'm still learning, right? Even going further, it wasn't after college because of running to the right person or seeking the right person or seeking the right materials or just personal experience of being in the neighborhoods that you start to learn about redlining, you start to learn about Jim Crow, that you start to learn about the war on drugs, that you start to learn about mass incarceration, and specifically for me, about education funding and the influences of that, because I mentioned those 5 things earlier of mental health issues, alcohol issues, school progress, violence, having a space of belonging and identifying. We have to ask ourselves, as a community, as a neighborhood, as a city, as a state here locally, what are the root causes? And I think that maybe the many thousands folks that I saw and having those emotions that I did, I don't think maybe they understand it at that deeper level. And I'm not claiming that I do. I'm still learning. And so that's my hope. I hope that folks that were out there, because for this movement, I'm seeing it now over this last 2 days, 3 days, I've been getting pessimistic. I'm like, whoa, there's less and less people going out. And so what does that mean? And so I do hope that folks can, in their private time, also educate themselves and reach out to folks to learn more and be active in communities, whether it's through volunteering or contributing in any form or shape, whether it's their sweat or equity or, yeah.
And I think that's very well said, Yoal. I think that people get to a point where, okay, I've done, 2 weeks of rallying and protesting and demonstrating. Okay, and that's important, and that's huge. And again, that has gone viral, if you will, all over the globe.
Yep.
So now the moment is turning into a movement, and what does that look like? And you've said, basically, to paraphrase, putting your money where your mouth is, and really,
pretty much,
right? And then, some people even talked about defunding, or maybe they really mean refunding police departments. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Oh, absolutely. And we're on the same page. I was just thinking about that. There's a lot of conversations that I'm seeing about defund the police and folks having arguments. But again, just don't stick to that one social media post or such. Get deeper within it. And so one thing I like to say is, when folks, I believe, when they're saying, and now the reason the defund the police is, it's not just a term that was coined right this moment or right at this movement. And I'm not claiming to be a person that's been an organizer, but there's many even in our communities who are deeply involved and heavily invested, not only now, but the past year, the past 5 years, the past 10 years, and for generations, asking for direct investment in communities, whether it's education or at the grassroots level, at the community level, or even grassroots organizations. And so when it comes to the defund the police, it's, I mentioned earlier about the war on drugs, the mass incarceration. There's folks talking about criminal justice reform. Dig into it, dig deeper, and understand what it means to have criminal justice reform. Dig deeper when folks are saying defund the police. I'd like to say, put in your money where your mouth is, right? Identify those in your community. There's many folks that have been working in the Denver metro area around criminal justice reform and the other topics that I brought up earlier. And so who are those folks? Search them online and help them and support them. Defund the police is a big thing right now. Folks maybe just looking up small little details on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, but get deeper, read into it. Find and identify individuals in the Denver metro area that are experts at the topic. And so for me personally, when folks are saying defund the police, when we're speaking about mass incarceration as an example that I brought up, that affects low-income communities, that affects African-American communities, then let's get down to it and support those communities at the grassroots level, at the organizational level, at the communal level, at the education level. I'll go even a little bit further. Well, let me step back. So when defund the police is coming up, it's about using the budgets of the city in the right places, right? So if studies, let's go back to studies, are showing that a lot of the money that is being placed by cities is going towards mainly administration and salary, I'll call that out right now, and I'm not scared to call that out.
Mm-hmm.
What are the outcomes when grassroots organizations like ourselves and many others in community, whether in Denver or around the nation, are being challenged and asked consistently over the years? What are your outcomes? What are your outputs? We have to prove ourselves every single day, whether it's through the grants, whether it's through the site visits. And so the question is, when we're saying defund the police, if such high percentage of a city's budget is going towards that public safety, can y'all show us your outcomes?
That's
Can
right.
y'all show us your impact? And so along with that, I'd like to make one more point. And so it's about asking ourselves as a society, when we're investing this money, what impact are we having? Can we have higher impact knowing the issues that we have in the community? Who's able to address them and have better impact? And I do believe those leaders, those community organizations, those teachers that are in the schools, that are in the community will have better impact if they can find those sources of funding that is being placed by the city towards the police, so that could be rerouted. The last point I wanted to make is whether it's foundation funding or state funding also, and even with that, putting your money where your mouth is, there's bills that are going to be coming up related to this conversation that we're having. And so I do hope those thousands of people who are out there marching and who will continue to march, when it comes to that time, dig into your pocket and help the community out, the African community out, African-American community specifically, and number one.
Well said. Yoal, thank you. You've raised some really great points, and I hope that people can take this information and our conversation and again, put their money where their mouth is and really hold police departments accountable and show those outcomes that nonprofits are always required to come up with before they get funded. Thank you so much for your time. Great to see you. You stay safe out there, my friend.
That's all. And last thing, I think that's what this movement is telling us, is it's holding all of us accountable moving forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you all for watching us. We appreciate your time as well. Thank you for joining us on Forum Moment to Movement. You can find out more about this program at pbs12.org. I'm Tamara Banks.